Hello, my name is Randy Sheets. I am happily married to Lisa Sheets, and we have three beautiful kids. Our oldest just turned 3, and we have a little one that is 1.5, and then we just had a new baby about a month and a half ago. So our hands are plenty full. Me and my wife lead a missional community in our neighborhood, and we have roughly around 15 people, mostly young families. And we have been about that particular missional community for just about a year now. I recently took over a role overseeing the coaching of our missional communities. We have about 33 missional communities, and I have about 7 other coaches helping me do that. A coach, at minimum, will oversee at least a coaching cluster. I personally oversee 3 coaching clusters, and there has been tons I've learned this past year. One of the biggest things I've learned is that coaching is really facilitating. It's really important that every MC leader knows that they, after the end of the coaching cluster, they walk away and own whatever's talked about. And I think in order to coach and really use that as a time to facilitate and help MC leaders learn and own next steps that they're going to take in leading their missional community better, is first understanding that they have the Holy Spirit, and God has put them in that role for a particular time and to lead them in a particular way. And really, you want to draw that out, and you don't want to quench that. The tendency you can have as a coach, especially someone who's just a few steps ahead of some of the MC leaders, and you learned a lot of mistakes, you have some decent amount of wisdom and experience, is you always want to impart that. And sometimes you can do that too much, and you can do it too quickly, and you quiet whatever the Spirit really wants to come out of this, MC leader, and ideas they might have, or perspectives they might have. One, from actually being on the ground, and they're the ones that are actually leading the missional community, feeling the weight of it very different than you. Well, there's a lot that you want to draw out. Really, what is happening with that missional community? So you got to give space, you got to give questions, you got to give times really just to facilitate the drawing out of that and help them capture what are those things that the Spirit wants to lead them to take action moving towards. Being a church that is a church of missional communities, things are very decentralized. You got communities, you got people spread out all throughout the city, experiencing different things, different struggles, different hardships, but also having great success and opportunities as well. And you just don't know everything all at once. It's hard to really get real time with news with every missional community moment by moment. There's so much that can happen even in a day. So how do you get on the ground awareness? How do you know what's happening real time so you can best support, resource, and help your people move that missional ball forward? Because the main thing with coaching is really moving that missional ball forward. But an important thing to do, I think, during coaching cluster to kind of get a little bit more awareness of what's going on the ground is don't just be too quick to jump to trying to figure out the next steps to help them move forward in leading their missional community, but also make sure you create a little space to just get awareness, get some feedback. Like, what are some big evidences of grace that have happened recently in their group? And what are some big struggles that they're experiencing right now? Super important, super helpful to get that context, to get some background, what's going on, and where are they struggling, and where are things going well, to kind of help inform you to best lead them moving forward. Also, doing that with several missional communities over a time helps you get a good general breadth of where your church family kind of needs help moving forward. So in regards to your sermon series, how you preach and who you're preaching to, it should help build into how you preach and how you prep for a sermon series, really getting that understanding of like how your people are really doing from face-to-face conversations. Also training, what you decide to train on in the quarter or in the course of the year. I think with coaching, you can begin to see similar patterns of unhealth, and you say, okay, most people don't know this kind of stuff, so these are the things we need to train on. Be super helpful in how you choose to equip your family. So big changes I made this season with coaching clusters. Last season, just this past year, learned a lot. And one of the big takeaways is don't make this thing too complicated. Anywhere from the overall structure itself to the processes that you set in place, and especially the questions. Whatever you use to coach your coaching cluster, you're gonna want to have some sort of standardized kind of pattern or form you use in the questions you ask. And I think the key thing is not to make it too complicated, not to make it just too, yes or no kind of questions. You really want to ask the right questions that draw out the most amount of conversation, where you can kind of guide and shift conversation to as it's needed to help them take next steps to lead their missional community well. And so this season, just to give you a rundown real quick, the basic kind of questions I've learned to kind of shift more of my coaching to: one, using that time to kind of share key information going on within the body, right? An important thing that we are seeing that coaching cluster is a great time for is helping our MC leaders have buy-in and ownership in how the elders are moving forward and leading, the church. We are a church of missional communities, therefore missional community leaders are highly valued and important to us moving forward as a church and Christ building his church through us. And so informing them during the coaching cluster time, super helpful, super important. But then after that, having a time of prayer and then merely sharing evidences of grace, hearing them, hey man, what are some of the victories that God's been helping you with? Which, side note, super important, because some of the MC leaders only think about the bad stuff. And there's almost always something amazing that the Spirit's doing that we tend to downplay because we make too much of failures. And you want to highlight that, and you want to encourage that, and you want to speak, hey, look what the Spirit's doing. MC leaders need that. So it's a little bit of time of sharing evidences of grace is important. And then I think a key question after that I've been asking in my coaching format that I've been doing is, what's one big goal you want to go after in the next 2 to 3 months? However you think the Spirit's leading you. And now that simple question always tends to bring out struggles that are really going on in the missional community that's hindering them from moving forward and leading their missional community. And it allows you to kind of draw out those and kind of facilitate the conversation to where it needs to go by just asking that simple question. And then really following up with that after you address some of the hindrances or struggles that might be getting in the way of like their big hope for their big goal. Sometimes their goal will change, or sometimes it won't. You just got to help them figure out how to navigate through the struggles. You just have a few action steps you help them come up with in light of their big goal and struggles. And what I've been doing is jotting that down and making sure there's a place where they can go back to and see and be reminded, hey, this is what we talked about. So super simple. But even those simple kind of coaching times actually draw a lot of great conversations and are just, they seem to be super helpful for the MC leader to take ownership. And then the next coaching cluster, you kind of follow up. Okay, how did you do with those next steps? So keeping it simple, I think is really important. Big lesson learned. I think the other thing that's really important is, how do you create an environment where new coaches are apprenticing, learning, and growing, so you have growing coaches, multiplying coaches while you're multiplying missional communities? Because if you don't have that kind of system in place, you're going to have a problem eventually. Not enough coaches for the missional communities you have. And the coach's role really being, helping that missional ball move forward. It's really important. I think it's that kind of relationship. As you grow coaches, I think missional communities will help the multiplication of missional communities as well. So that's super important. What we've been doing this year, instead of just having a monthly coaching cluster with the coach always facilitating, this year we have 3 touch points for every quarter that we're going to try out for the fall. First is going to be a leaders meeting where we grab all the leaders to come together. Big goal for that is, it's kind of like the coaching cluster, but with just a lot more leaders. Bring them all in one room saying, guys, here's where we're going. Here's where we're heading in the fall. Like, that's for us, or here's where we're heading in this new season. These are key things that we're doing. And maybe we could even do some training if it makes sense, but we're in this together. Let's move forward together. and creating some space to hear back from them and to dialogue together. And then the next 2 months in the quarter are going to be coaching clusters, but the first one will be the coach facilitating as usual, and the second month of the coaching cluster, which is the third month of the quarter, we will have an appointed apprentice coach leader actually facilitate the coaching cluster. And then that'll be a time where the coach sits in, but is more of an observer than a facilitator. And will only step in as needed and make sure afterwards they actually give feedback that will help the development of the apprentice coach. And the hope is, as seasons move along, that person will take on the role of coaching the missional community. And they are someone you really want to look for that has that kind of ability to think missionally, strategically, and is very excited and passionate about always calling their people on mission and wanting to see that the mission happen within their community. And so just to reiterate, I think just keeping it simple and creating a structure where new leaders can be developed and raised is, I think, 2 big lessons learned this past year.